Hi there, Joel at Earth Tools here. We're going to go through a new tractor setup on a Grillo G107 walk-behind tractor. This is the gas-powered Honda model. This is probably our most popular G107, so we'll go over this. There might be slight differences with other engines, but this will give you a good general idea. So when you receive the tractor, of course, it'll be in a box, and the handlebars will be folded down just like you see it here. The easiest way to get the machine out of the box is simply to slit the corners of the box with a razor knife or your trusty pocket knife or whatever. Fold the box down and just roll the tractor off. Two things to know before you roll it off. One is you want to make sure that the gear shift selector is in the F position here. That's neutral. Just think of it as free. Or if it's not in that position, it won't roll. The other thing is, if you fold the handlebars up to a more comfortable working position, it's going to be more easy to roll. More easy, that's good English. But anyway, this is the handlebar release lever. So when you push this down, you can bring the handles up, and then when you release the lever, they'll drop into one of the 4 notches that are cut in there. So you bring them up to a more reasonable height, and you can then roll the machine. So once you got it off the pallet and you're ready to start assembling things, there's some other stuff in the box. There's going to be a shroud, which is absolutely useless, except it looks cool and it's green. It's got the model number on it too. There's the gear shift levers, which are extremely important. And of course there's their owner's manuals. There's the engine manual, the tractor manual, and usually some other documentation we put in there that we print here, all in English, to get you started, kind of quick tips things. So read through all that stuff before you call and ask questions, please. So the handlebars are in the front PTO mode now. So this is the mode you would run mowers and chippers and snow blowers and things like this. And if if the first implement you mount is going to have the handlebars oriented this way, then fine, you can just leave them like this. Otherwise, you'd be turning the handlebars around. But before you want to turn the handlebars around, you want to do something about these squeeze grips right here. The silver colored squeeze grip assemblies are rotated in for shipping to make it fit down in the box. So these are loose, and you'll need to get 2 10mm wrenches and tighten these things down. Now this is the idiot switch, or the kill switch, it's the engine safety switch. So this has to be depressed down in order to get this rotated back up into here. Kind of depends on if the clutch handle is squeezed and locked. There is a trigger lock on there. We'll get to a little more of that later. But at any rate, this has to be rotated back into this position so that the clutch lever is in line with the safety lever. That way when the clutch lever is locked, it holds the safety down. On this side, I just bring it out until the one handle is straight down and the other one is just out at whatever angle it needs to be. Take 2 10mm wrenches, tighten down those clamping bolts, and you're good to go. I'm not going to tighten those right now. We're just going to pretend I did, because I can use the tractor temporarily like this. So we'll go quickly over the controls. Again, this is the clutch. You'd see how that trigger works. When the trigger is not touched, it locks. If you want the trigger to release the clutch handle, you depress the trigger. So if you're squeezing the clutch and you're going to shift gears and let the clutch right back out, simply squeeze the trigger at the same time and it won't lock. But if you want to squeeze the clutch handle and have it stay squeezed so that power is interrupted and the tractor won't go anywhere, you just let the trigger lock it. When you're ready to unlock it, depress the whole handle and you squeeze the trigger and the thing will come loose. Again, when that trigger is locked, it holds the safety bar down, provided you've got it lined up back here, so that the engine can run when you're not at the handlebars. But the only time it can do that is when the clutch is locked, so the tractor can't go anywhere even if you left it in gear. So it's kind of a double safety. This control on the side is your handlebar rotation control. So when you squeeze that, it lets you rotate the handles. Otherwise, it locks in position. There's only a few positions it locks in. You can't just lock it anywhere. On the 107, it has a lock off to this side, center, nothing on this side in the mowing position, but when you turn the handlebars back around for tilling, there's offsets on each side. On this side of the handles, we've got 2 levers. These are the independent steering brake controls, right and left wheel brakes, so you can brake one wheel and the machine will steer. Or steer on its own, rather, when it's under power. the right and left brakes are relative to the tractor handlebar position. So right now, actually, with the handlebars in this mode, this is the right brake and this is the left brake, so it kind of makes sense. You turn the handlebars around, they're going to be backwards. They can only be right one way. We typically put them right in this mode because you're using these brakes more for mowing than you are for tilling. This is the engine throttle. Down is more throttle. That's full throttle. That's idle. This is the differential lock control. When you pull this all the way back, it locks the axle differential in the center to lock the drive of both wheels together all the time. When the differential is locked, you get more traction because one wheel can't slip independent of the other wheel. However, when it's locked, the steering brakes don't do you any good because it can't slow down one wheel independently of the other. So maneuvering is more of a problem when this is locked. So only lock it during high traction jobs, and then when you don't need it, you just flip it back out. This, by the way, can be engaged and disengaged during the motion of the tractor. You do not have to stop or clutch the tractor to use this. And of course, we already discussed the handlebar height adjustment control. So, your tractor is going to come usually with something taped on the middle. You can take this stuff off, it's not that useful. It's nice and black and ugly, which is why they give you a nice shroud to put over it. If you want to put the shroud on, you clip it on with the top end first, just cinch that down in there, and pop that down, make sure you don't pinch any cables under it. It's all good, looks sexier now. We will now cut loose our shift levers. Usually the shroud and the shift levers will be wrapped up in some shrink wrap to keep the parts from falling off the end down here, the little cotter pins and so forth. I've already cut that off just to go quicker. We'll take all our cotter pins out. The two gear shift joints go on to the shift levers, the upright shift levers. And we're going to start feeding these through. Now these are opposites, right and a left. And I typically want to install them so they will come in from the outside. That is, if I put this one on this side, I would have to come out from the inside, and that usually is a bit more of a problem. So I'm going to put this one on this side. As far as the knob coloration, it really doesn't matter. Some of these come with 2 grays, some of them come with 2 oranges. Some come with 1 of each. It really doesn't make much difference because when you swing the handlebars around, the levers get reversed anyway. Usually you'll only find 1 color with your tractor. The one that's going to be different all the time is the black one. That's the forward reverse. You can tell it quickly because it has a different looking end on the bottom. It bends down instead of to the side. So that's only the forward and reverse. So again, we'll slide these in. I'm going to actually start this side. So if you come around in this way, you can see here's the plug-in for the forward and reverse. It's already got one of these little joints on it that comes installed from the factory. And then this is the power takeoff shift. So this lever is going to be for the power takeoff shift. I can see that I've got 2 eyelets up here, a top, upper and a lower, and then I've got these oriented down here. Obviously this one is going to need to go to the PTO because it's on the upper side and this one's further forward. So I'm going to feed this through. Bring it down here. You have a choice of how you're going to put this on, this way or this way. I always prefer having the rod slide through horizontally on the side of the vertical rod further from the operator. So if the operator is on this side of the machine, I would orient it like this. This is coming through on the kind of the opposite side from the operator. And the same thing if you turn the handlebars around the other direction. Now you've got a washer and a pin to go on here. There we go. The washers are fairly useless, but the factory puts them on there. If you lose the washers, it's no big deal. Now I'm going to feed through the forward and reverse lever. It's going to go on the bottom over here. Slide that down through the knuckle that's already there, again on the far side. Drop that down through. So the first time you lose the washers, I wouldn't worry too much about it. You'd probably pick them up at your hardware store as well as the clips, but I don't fool much with the washers. Just the clips are what's holding it on there. All right. And then on this side, now I have a choice. I can put this on the upper or lower side. because I've only got one shift lever down here, the gear shift. Well, I'm going to put it on the bottom, and this makes a difference, and you'll see why when I turn the handlebars around. So I'm going to feed it through the bottom hole. Bring it down here again. I'll rotate this around from the opposite of the operator position. Clip and washer. Now we're ready to shift gears and drive the machine around. So I would clutch, shift, well, after I started it, of course, and the fuel shutoff on the engine is right down here next to the choke. Here's the choke, here's the fuel shutoff. We typically ship the fuel in the off position, which will be over here. I was just running this a minute ago, so I have it on, but you'll want to turn it on to that position. There's a little on arrow right down here, but it's going to be shipped in the off position, and anytime you're not using the machine, I recommend you turn the fuel off. But since we're going to start it here in a minute, I'm going to turn that on. I'm going to go ahead and fire this baby up. So I would put some fuel in it. The oil levels are already checked by us because I test run every tractor before they go out of here. One thing I haven't done to this particular tractor yet is put a inspected sticker on it, but it's going to get one before it ships, because that means if you see an inspected sticker on there, it means I ran the tractor before it left here. So make sure the ignition switch is on over here on the side of the engine. There's an on-off switch there. That can stay on all the time, really, because you can use your safety shut-off switch up here on the handlebars to kill the thing. I'm going to choke it because it's cold. I'm going to engage the throttle a little bit. As it starts, turn off the choke and you're ready to go. Put it in gear. There's second gear. Forward and reverse control, that's still second gear. Getting used to the gear shifting is going to take you a while, because the tractor is never going to have tighter gears than it has right now, and you're never going to have less experience shifting it than you do right now. So sometimes you're going to squeeze the clutch, you're going to go to put it in gear, and it just doesn't want to go in. It's just resistance. It just won't slide into the gear position. The same thing will happen with the PTO shift, which is your implement engagement, and your forward and reverse. All you have to do, and we have documentation talking about this, but I can give you more of a, a verbal instruction here. All you have to do is get the gear to turn a little in the transmission, and to do that, you use your clutch. So if for example, I'm trying to push it into second gear and it doesn't want to go. Now, of course, it doesn't want to shift now because it's not running. But if it were running and I was trying to get it into second gear, I would have the clutch depressed. I'd be trying to push it into gear and it didn't want to go. Okay, so I keep a little pressure against that handle, just kind of mild pressure, and slowly start letting out the clutch. As soon as the gears start to turn, they're going to line up and you have some pressure on them, so they're going to pop into place. This takes a little feel, kind of getting used to the clutch and how much to feather it and so forth, but it works perfectly. The point is you're going to use finesse to shift the gears and not force. If you bang and curse and drag on the shifters, you're going to bend something and you're going to screw the inside of the transmission up. They're not made for that. Once the machine breaks in a little, and which might take a while because it's a very long life transmission, it's going to shift a little easier and you'll get more used to the clutch and it'll get easier as you go along. So finesse, not force, that's the point. Now we'll deal with turning the handlebars around. So let's say I'm going to put a tiller on this thing, so I need to turn the handles around. The first thing you're going to do, of course, is disengage all your shift rods. I'm going to pull these little cotter pins back off. I'm not going to take all these shift levers out. I'm just going to shove them back up through here. Let them hang. This one, the forward and reverse lever, is going to have to come out, and you'll see why, because it's going to change sides of the tractor. Now that all those are sitting up there, I'm going to squeeze my release lever. You can only go one way. If you go the wrong way with the handles, you run into a stop right down here and you can't go any further. So that's good. That keeps you from wrapping the cables up in the knot. So I'm going to bring these around. You always want to watch your cables here and make sure nothing gets caught. This little bracket sometimes can get dicey with the cables, so just pull the cables around it. keep the handle squeezed all the way through the rotation. If you let off on this halfway through the rotation, you're going to scrape your gear shift decal right off, because this is the locking pin right in this cylinder. And as it moves over that decal, it'll scrape the nice semicircular mark in the decal. So keep your locking pin squeezed until you come around to the center position. There you go. We're locked back in. As I said earlier, there's an offset on each side here, so you don't have to walk in your tilled path. Great. So we're there. Now we plug things back in. Well, we've got a little bit of a problem because the forward and reverse lever is now on the wrong side. Here's our PTO. We can plug that in. That's no problem. Here's our gear shift. We can plug that in. Again, I orient this opposite where the operator is. And this one doesn't have anywhere to hook to. But luckily, it has an extra hole, and it's on the top where it needs to be, because when I had the handlebars around the other way, I put this one on the bottom because I knew this one was going to come to the top. So we got a hole for it. Plug it in down here. There. Clip and washer, and we're good to go. Everything works the same. Now, as far as oil levels, I mentioned that everything is filled by us and checked, but you're going to want to check it from time to time. I'm going to grab some scrap wood here so I can level this machine up. You always want the engine level when you check the oil. If you have an implement on there, sometimes that means putting a block under the implement to bring it up to level the engine out, because with certain implements like a tiller, the engine actually sits up in the air a little more, but it's got to be level to get a good reading. Once it's level, take off the oil cap. The oil should be right to the edge of the filler hole. It's actually dripping out, which is perfect. This is perfectly filled. Maximum allowable oil level on this type of engine is running out of the hole. There's no dipstick there. The owner's manual talks about a dipstick, but we actually cut it off. That's the little stub of what's left of it. We throw the dipstick away. The dipstick is only about this long. They get people in trouble because people take it out. They say, oh, there's a little oil in the dipstick, and they don't bother going and getting the oil can, and then they take the tractor and run on some 40-degree slope and wonder why their engine seizes up. Well, because when it's on the end of the dipstick, that's a safe zone as long as the engine is operating in a level condition. If the engine's tilted at maximum angle, you don't have enough oil. If the oil is running out the filler hole, you know you've got enough oil in this engine to run in any position that you can get in with the engine and safely work without falling off the mountainside. So we eliminate that question for our customers. There's a second oil fill on the other side of the engine. It's exactly the same place. That is, both of them go into the same reservoir. It's a universal engine, so they put fills and drains on both sides of the engine. You'll typically use the ones on this side because they're easier to get to. The drain is right here. Oil should be changed initially after 8 hours, and then every 40 to 50 hours thereafter. Consult the engine owner's manual or our website for oil recommendations. There's also transmission oil in this thing. This is 90 weight gear oil, checked and filled right here. There's a dipstick on the bottom of the cap, and it is full to actually a little over capacity, but that's fine. A little extra won't hurt because there's plenty of air room in there. The drain is right back here. Take that out. I usually put a block under the one wheel to lift the machine and kind of tilt it a little bit to get all the old oil out. And also you want it tilted a little bit back to get that oil to run to the back of the transmission where the drain is. The transmission should be drained after the first season, and if you want to change it every year thereafter, that's good. Some people don't change it that often. Once they change the break-in oil, you could go 3 or 4 years, particularly if you put a synthetic gear oil in there that probably lasts for 10 years. Again, the engine owners or the tractor owner's manual is going to have oil specs on what they want you to run in the transmission, but it's pretty standard gear oil. So I think that pretty much gets it going. If you got any questions, give us a call at Earth Tools. Thank you for your purchase, and talk to you later.